Well, hi, my name is Nicholas Bell, and it's my pleasure to be able to speak with Laura Mora Ortega for her new film, The Kings of the World, which won the Golden Seashell, the top prize at this year's San Sebastian Film Festival. It's also Colombia's official submission in the category of Best International Feature at the 95th Academy Awards. So congratulations on both those fronts.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So tell me how this project came together. I know you have a very notable screenwriter, Maria Camila Arias, who wrote Birds of Passage and Clara Sola recently. So tell me about the origins of how this project first came to fruition.
Well, after making my first feature, which is very autobiographical, I think I felt very free to talk about other things that really worried me and things that gave me that make me ask a lot of questions around the reality of the country that I come from, which is such a turmoil. And so I started writing about these kids claiming a piece of land in a very, I think, in a very freestyle kind of way. Like it just started like a treatment and writing all these images that came to my mind about these kids doing like this road trip, claiming a piece of land, about what happens when you don't have anything and suddenly you receive a letter from the government saying that they are giving back a land that belonged to your parents, because in Colombia the land restitution is a big issue right now after the peace process. So because I started in such a freestyle kind of way, and the script is not like entirely realistic, and I have this like very lyric kind of sequences, I asked Maria Camila to come on board. I think I was on like the third draft that I felt that I needed someone as good as her and as talented as her to kind of like give me a little bit of order and structure in this script. So she came along and it was amazing to work with her. As she said, like she has written so many amazing films. I admire her so much. And I think she brought out a lot of questions to make the characters stronger, to make every character, it's 5 kids going on this journey, to make every character to have like something very special.
Yeah, it's a lot of characters to balance, especially when they're all similar or the same age. Your first film or your last film was Killing Jesus, which, as you mentioned, had a lot of autobiographical elements. And I know that project kind of sat with you for a long time. And I also know that you originally wanted to start out as a documentarian. So this feature feels a lot more like what I would expect from somebody that also had an interest in documentaries. But there is a nice, it feels very surreal at times, very fantastical, dreamlike, even a nightmare. And you have a cinematographer that's also very notable, David Gallego, who shot Embrace of the Serpents and Birds of Passage. And at what point did you bring him on board? And was it always your intention to have that quality about it?
It's really funny. There are a lot of things in this film that happened because of the circumstances of the moment, especially after the pandemic, that were really like gifts and things that became really special, that at a time were accidents and suddenly they became really special. I do have like a lot of, like, it was very clear to me that this film was gonna, the whole journey was gonna be a ride between the realistic images and the oniric images, and the realistic images had to feel very truthful and kind of like a documentary filmmaking at a time. And then you have like this very like established shots and choreographies of all like the oniric bits. I was supposed to work with my previous cinematographer, who is amazing. His name is James Brown and he's Australian. And because of the pandemic, he couldn't fly to Colombia. And we kind of like sat down together because we had been working on the project for a long time. And we both said, if there is one photographer in Colombia that we admire and that we think that could shot this film amazingly, will be David Gallego. Like, he knows how to shoot the landscape, and my filmography is a very urban city filmography. So it was also like the first time for me learning how to shoot the landscape. And we both felt that David Gallego was going to bring so much. And we knew each other because we started when we were young, when he was just a camera assistant and I was a script supervisor. We met each other on sets when we were very young. So it was like coming back together and working together. And he learned me, like he taught me so much about how to approach the landscape. And I also think that I gave him a lot on this like very freestyle kind of shooting. Like, he comes from films that are very like stable, and I had a lot of sequences that were like handheld and more free, improvised with the kids. And I felt that we both made a really good combination. Really proud of the cinematography of this film, and I think his work is amazing.
I agree. I think it looks fantastic, but especially, yes, from somebody that has shot these jungle images, very beautifully before, and something like Embrace of the Serpent, it is equally beautiful, but also very much its own visual medium in Kings of the World. One of my favorite scenes is with the sex workers, where who are kind of acting in a maternal way towards the boys at one moment in the film. And was that always a part of the script? And I really like the innocence of that, especially from these two groups who are usually portrayed as, not in a very innocent fashion.
Yeah, that scene was from the beginning in the script. I wanted to have just like one completely like kind of like female universe in this film. This is a very masculine world, and as a woman, I'm very intrigued by the world of men, especially because Colombia is such a violent country, and sometimes I feel that masculinity and violence had a lot to do. So in this journey of me as a woman filmmaker, trying to make these boys be more fragile, I was very clear that I wanted like this kind of female universe to be about women who also live kind of in like the oblivion, and they find like the mother figure, but the women are also treating these boys as probably as the kids that they've lost. They've lost in a war, or they've lost somewhere in this conflict history of Colombia. So when I was talking with the production designer and with the DP, with David Gallego, I told them that I always imagined this house to be like a place that where you enter in the night, you kind of don't know if it's real or if it's a delirium, like. Right. But then the next day you see them as just like old women in this place full of love, making breakfast. It kind of like, it's like the fantasy completely disappears during the day in a way. So we decided to create this house in the middle of the mountains. And then I also decided to put a lot of like symbols in that scene. Like there's like a Colombian flag that is like in the top of the ceiling of the brothel, because I felt that place in a way was like a motherland, like a homeland. It represents a history of violence where women are left alone because their men and their kids are taken away by war. So we kind of like created this universe with that piano in the background, and with the kids hugging these women as if they were their mothers.
It also reminded me that sequence a little bit of Carlos Regadas, a bit. Some of his
really.
with how he incorporates women sometimes and sex workers in particular in some scenes of his films. I was also struck, the boys feel very much like it's like Peter Pan, Never Never Land, like they're kind of disembodied almost. And I was struck by the innocence of them, but they're very close, which is probably by necessity, but I'm assuming that was always from the get-go too, that they were they're going to be their own familial unit with Ra lording over them.
As the leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really wanted to, like, even from the script, and we told this with Maria Camila a lot, I wanted tenderness to be there, you know, like I feel that tenderness is something that sometimes is taken away from men, especially from these kind of boys that have struggled since they are so young and they have to deal with such a hardcore reality. It's like tenderness is something that you keep for your own and you never let it out. But then when we started rehearsing with the boys, that they are non-professional actors, none of them had acted ever before, and we started like playing games and doing a lot of conversations and kind of like building very safe space for them and for them to get to know each other. They didn't know each other before the film, and suddenly so much tenderness came out. Like these kids really like physically, and the way they spoke to each other, and Ra, like the leader, became the leader in a very like organic way because he was such a father figure and so nice to them, and there was so much tenderness that I couldn't even imagine. Like when I was writing the script, I think I couldn't imagine that this was going to come out so organically. And I think their tenderness, their natural tenderness really brings something really special to the film, because I think that you don't get to see boys from such a rough place and have behaving in that way. And I think it's like I think tenderness can be revolutionary in a way. In such a hardcore world, sometimes affection can really hold us together.
I agree, but I was immediately struck by that, about how that is not kind of the vein we usually see boys like this treated in on film. What was the casting process like? How long did it take to find all of them?
I start the casting process really like it's a very lonely process at the beginning for me. Like when I start writing, I start walking the streets and having a lot of conversations. I'm very curious to these kind of characters, and I knew some of them from my previous film, and I kind of like I was very close to these and to this world of these kids. So a lot of them, I knew them while I was writing, like Winnie, the little one. I saw him for the first time when he was like 11. I was completely blown away by him. I took a picture of him. I was like, this is my reference for character. Then Sere, the kid that has like the disability on his arm, I knew him from a long time as well. So I start in a very like conversational manner. And then when my casting director comes in, which is the same casting director than the previous film, we just like, I give her like a very deep description of the characters. And I give her like a couple of pictures, and then she starts again walking and making interviews. And it was very clear for us that we needed to find boys that were not only like aggressive, violent boys. We needed to find boys with a lot of sensitive material inside them. So we created like a questionnaire, like a couple of questions, like what was the happiest day of your life? And that small question, when the boys started answer, you could see that was so much either tenderness or imagination or nostalgia, melancholy, like the elements that we needed. Then we also had another question that was like, what's the saddest moment of your life? And with those two little questions, we could really see if the boys that we had in front of us talking to us had like the sensitive material that we needed to work with.
Interesting. Do any of them want to go on to pursue a career in acting?
I think Andres, the leader of the group, I think he's really interested, and he's so smart, and he's very creative, that I do feel that he is the one. But then there's the other Culebro, which is like the antagonist. He wants to keep on working on the lighting, was amazed by the lighting crew. So
Okay.
I think, yeah, so they were more amazed by the behind the cameras, I have to say, than the front of the cameras, but they loved it, and they loved the experience. And when they watched the film for the first time in San Sebastian, they were blown away by it.
As they should have been. How long was the shoot?
It was 9 weeks. It was supposed to be 8 weeks, but then because we had 33 cases of COVID during the shoot, and we had like plan B for everyone. We knew if the boys got COVID, we had to stop. So when they did get it, we stopped for a week. And the journey was really long, because the film starts in Medellín and it goes all the way to the Bajo Cauca, which is like you have to go through like the mountains, and it takes like, actually it's like a 8-hour journey to go to the actual place where we shot the end. Yeah.
Impressive. And you're from Medellín originally, correct?
Yes, I am from Medellín, and I am, I think, yeah, my point of view of the world is completely like affected by the fact that I grew up in a city like Medellín, which has so many contrasts. And I grew up at a very violent time during the 80s and the 90s. And I think that's obviously in there. Like, I have a lot of questions about violence because I've been directly affected by violence. My dad was killed when I was 21 years old. My previous film has to do with that. And I think cinema has allowed me to make a lot of questions about the things that are painful for me or that I love. And I'm not trying to find clear answers through cinema. I think I want to find more questions and keep questioning and keep my curiosity of world. It's so complex.
And there's a lot of catharsis in that, in being able to do that. Before we go, is there are you working on any other projects at the moment?
I'm going to be directing 3 episodes of 100 Years of Solitude
Nice.
for Netflix, for the series. So that's a big challenge, and right now I'm focused on that because, yeah, it's such a big project. It's around people that I admire so much, like Eugenio Caballero on the production design. And I mean, there's a lot of really big names there. And I think it's going to be, I mean, we have to be so careful. It's such an important book, especially for Colombians, but I think for the rest of the world. Magic realism is, it's a whole universe that we have to take care of. So it's amazing, it's challenging. And I'm developing another project with Maria Camila Arias as well, with the writer.
Okay, awesome. That's exciting as well. But yeah, 1,000 Years of Solitude. That's the juggernaut. That book. Right?
Yeah. No, it's really hard, and I was really scared at the beginning when they first called me. But I think we're in good hands, and the writers are amazing, and yeah, I think we're gonna take care of it.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to that then as well. But thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. And anybody that hasn't had the chance to see The Kings of the World, I hope they will soon, as I believe it's still awaiting distribution. Is that correct?
It's got Netflix.
Netflix bought it? Okay.
Yeah, Netflix bought it, and it's gonna be in the platform, I think, around mid-January. They bought it a couple of months ago, and we're really happy about that. For now, it's for the whole North America and Latin America continent. In Europe, we're gonna be in theaters in Spain, in France, in Switzerland. So we're still not on a platform there yet because we're gonna go on the movie theaters.
Nice. But and I read that it had opened in Colombia already.
Yeah, and it was amazing. We still we're still there 9 weeks after we released, which is amazing for like an independent film. And I mean, the critics and the audience have been amazing. It has really brings up the conversation, and people have been very, very emotional with the film, and it's released in Mexico right now as well.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to corresponding in the future.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you for having me.
Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.